Here we are looking at the very last lesson in the text, and that's 15.2, which is two-way relative frequency tables. Now, relative frequency really is just a fancy way of talking about percentages and also probabilities. And for example, in this first problem, you can see that it looks like we've asked a total of 50 people. And just by looking at the columns, I can see that we asked those 50 people whether they like dogs, whether they like cats, or if they had an other preference. And so we're going to turn this table into a frequency table, which means we're going to take these numbers here and turn them into fractions out of a total of 50 people. Okay, here we are. We're going to create a relative frequency table, and you can see that people that preferred a dog, there were 22 people out of a total of 50, and that's where this first fraction comes from, 22 out of 50 that prefer a dog. Let's write the other fraction for a cat. 15 people liked a cat out of a total of 50 people. And other, 13 people had a preference for other out of 50. And the grand total, of course, was 50 out of 50 because we have to write a fraction for all the people. And 50 out of 50 as a decimal is 1.00. And let's go back here and we're going to turn these. You can see that 22 out of 50 was turned into a decimal. You can use this in a calculator. An easy way to turn a fraction that's over 50 into a decimal is to just multiply the top and the bottom by 2, because 2 times 50 is 100. 2 times 22 is 44, and so 44 over 100 is 0.44. If I multiply these two by 2, 50 times 2 is 100, but 15 times 2 is 30. And so that is the same as saying 30 hundredths or 0.30. And the same here, multiply the top and the bottom by a 2. And 2 times 13 is 26. So it's 26 over 100 or 0.26. And 0.44 as a percent is just 44%. So 44% of the people preferred a dog, and 30% preferred a cat. That comes from the 0.30, and you guessed it, 0.26 becomes 26%. And if you add up all the percents, 44 plus 30 is 74, plus 26 is 100, and we have to account for 100% of all the people that we involved in our survey. When we create a two-way frequency table, that's what we're going to do here. Things start to get a little bit interesting because you have to interpret which fractions you're going to write. The first thing we need to do is we actually need to complete the two-way table. Just remember that vertical columns all add up to a total. So 10 plus 12 means that 22 people like dogs, and that correlates with what we saw from before. But it just so happens that 10 of them were girls and 12 of them were boys. And out of the cats, if you remember, there were 15 people that liked a cat. Well, 9 of them happened to be girls and 6 of them happened to be boys. And if we want to take a look at other, there were 13 people that liked other, but only 3 of them were girls and 10 of them were boys. And remember that in a two-way table, the horizontal rows also have to add up, and 10 plus 9 plus 3 is 22, and 12 plus 6 plus 10 is 28. And altogether, that gave us the 50 people that responded in the survey. So this column this row right here looks just like the example that we had before, only now the results are broken up between boys and girls. And we're going to take a look and see, is there a preference for girls of one of these types of pets? And then also, is there a preference for boys amongst these types of pets? So we're going to take a look at how we're going to write our fractions. So for example, if you were a girl, we remember that there were 22 girls and 10 of them liked a dog. So this fraction becomes 10 out of 22. And out of the people that liked a cat, well, 9 people liked a cat, 9 girls liked a cat. Out of the 22 girls, 9 of them preferred a cat. So we'll write that fraction, 9 over 22. And other was only 3 out of 22. And if you go to your calculator and you divide 10 by 22, you're going to get a decimal. It's going to give you 0.45. And if you take 9 out of 22, you're going to get 0.41. And 3 out of 22 is going to give you 0.14. Now, together, 45 plus 41 plus 14, 45 and 41 is 86 plus 14. That gives us a decimal of 1.00, which means we've accounted for all of our girls. Let's go ahead and take a moment here and write all the fractions out for boys, which there were 28 boys. 12 of them liked a dog, 12 out of 28, and 6 out of 28 preferred a cat, and 10 out of 28 preferred other. And if I take those and divide them in our calculator, this comes out to be 0.43, and the cat becomes 6 out of 28, 0.21, and 10 out of 28, the other is 0.36. And 43 plus 21 is 64, plus 36 accounts for all of the boys, and our total, which would be 22 out of 50, which still prefer a dog, and 15 out of 50, which preferred the cat, and then 13 preferred other, 13 out of 50. And those decimals aren't going to change from what we even had before on the other column, 0.44, and I better put a 0 there, 0.30, and 0.26. And again, if I add up all those decimals, that also adds up to 100% of all the people that participated in the survey. We're going to do one last task with this bottom table here, and that is we're going to look at, is there a preference or a correlation between your gender and which kind of a pet you like? Meaning, are girls or boys more or less likely in each one of these categories? And so in each category, we're going to compare it to the overall total. Now, I know that 0.44 or 44% of the people liked a dog. And if you look at the columns of data for the girls, well, 45% of girls like dogs and 43% of boys like dogs. The total was 44%. And these numbers are all about the same, 44, 43, 45. So we will say for a dog, there is no correlation. But let's go take a look at the cat. 30% of everybody, 30% of all the respondents liked a cat. But boys, 21%, and girls, 41%. Now this is a little bit different. These numbers aren't the same at all. I think that it's safe to say that if you are a girl, you are more likely to like a cat than the general population. So for cats, there is a preference. The preference is that girls are more likely to like a cat. Now let's take a look at the other category. Now 26% of all the respondents preferred other, but girls, only 14% wanted another pet besides a dog or a cat, and boys is significantly higher than this 26%. So there is a correlation between being a boy and liking other, meaning if you're a boy, you're more likely to prefer other than the general population of students that responded.